I'm going to start talking about the people that seem to think this is World 2. Listen, you're probably new to the series, so let me explain. Rise is an arcade-style Monster Hunter. It's not World or World 2. Yeah, World looks nice, plays nice, but isn't arcade-based, because World takes a lot of time. World has cutscenes. World has complicated maps. Now Monster Hunter Ultimate is an arcade-based game, closest relative to Rise, but is also good for its own reasons, be it Hunter Arts, which is something I don't understand why they aren't able to carry good mechanics over to different titles, but Rise is a different take on what can improve Monster Hunter. Next brief mention. Originally Rise wasn't meant for PC, but after devs heard requests, also known as people complaining, they started working on a PC version, which is why it's going to take an extra year. So there, you know why it's taking so long. Now it's time to get into Monster Hunter Rise. So what is the narrative of Monster Hunter? Monster Hunter is based in a world where you hunt monsters. That's pretty much in the title of the series. But what really matters to those who want to get into Monster Hunter, or more specifically Rise, is what does Rise offer mechanically? Well, we will get into that, but right now I'd rather cover the format of Rise. Rise models its style after games like Monster Hunter Ultimate, where the map is more flat and less complex, and how Rise takes a more arcadic approach that games like Ultimate had as well. be it an easy drop in and start fighting with the monster. But real quickly back to the map, in World and Ultimate isn't just graphics, not just simplicity or overcomplication. And what that is a connected map. World is the first Monster Hunter game with a connected map. Rise is the first arcadic Monster Hunter game with a connected map. So no more loading screens between different sections of the maps, which adds to that arcadic formula. And for me, it allows faster and easier ways to find the monsters. The maps also, I believe, are bigger. Wait, hold on a second. How big were Monster Hunter World maps? Were they big? Before you say yes, think about this. What determines the size of a game map? Its area, or is it depending on how it's filled and traversed? To me, it's the traversing of the map that bends our minds on what makes a world map big. Because World had the ancient forest, which had a lot of verticality, but to me felt big until I really started thinking about it. Monster Hunter World's maps are harder to travel through, making it take longer for players to get to their objective. By how hard it is for the player to find their objective makes the area conceptually bigger than it is in their minds, than how small it is actually in reality. Now, to dip our toes into the game's mechanics, the mounts known as Palamutes are cute dogs that allows the player to traverse the map faster. So you thought you were out of the woodwork. Cute. While movement is a mechanic, it's also related to the concept of how big or small a map or world feels. And these cute doggos have an effect on how small they can make a world feel. So with World, it was the opposite. Small world feeling big. With Rise, it's a big world that feels small. Well, in World, your max speed is sprinting, so you can only run in World or slide down slopes. But in Rise, these dogs are literally mini motorcycles that traverse 20 miles per hour in a 1 to 2 mile map. Now, how does this make it smaller in the mind? Well, walking at 1 mile per hour in a 1 to 2 mile map would take 1 to 2 hours. But for the motorcycle going 20 miles an hour, it takes 6 to 12 minutes, cutting down journey time, making the person on the motorcycle to think, well, that was pretty small. But for the guy walking those 2 miles, he had a 2-hour journey. That took a bit out of him. They both compare thoughts. Motorcycle guy says, that wasn't that long of a drive. I was hoping there was more road. To where the guy walking replies, it wasn't long. It took me 2 hours to get here. There was so much distance. Speed traveled on the map directly determines how big or small a map feels. But the doggos are a nice addition to Monster Hunter Rise since these maps are wider. Plus, being able to harvest on doggos helps speed up the monotonous harvesting, allowing for faster gathering to then reach the monsters faster. Now how about we talk about what everyone else is talking about? Wirebugs are the movement and abilities in this Monster Hunter. Before I go into the specifics, I'm going to cover the wirebug limits. The wirebugs have a max of 3 charges. Wirebugs have a rather short cooldown and may be elongated by certain debuffs. Now going into the movement of the wirebugs. As a player, you can launch your character horizontally for a more momentum movement closer to the ground. Or you can launch your character up diagonally and use that as a way to do aerial attacks. Players can also hold themselves up in the air with a wirebug, and also launch themselves up twice, or launch themselves back into the ground. That and wirebugs can also play into the game's combat as well, locking some weapon abilities through the wirebug mechanic. Segueing into weapons, but hold on, I gotta tell you about some streamers I enjoy for the game. Being Riverslug, Uncle Falchion, Tolomia. They're all great variety streamers that all have played Rise. Slug and Falchion both allow viewers to join. You guys should check them out. But forget about that guy that's trying to get in. What's his name? Greatsword. Not many people normally care about him enough to visit or play Rise with him. But ignore that part. Weapons I'm not too interested in covering, but I'll give a brief guidance to them, going from the easiest to hardest to me. Shield weapons. Sword and shield allows for quick movement, good defense from the shield, and can be the best weapon for starters. Instead of worrying about slow weapon speed, you can worry about learning the monsters rather than the weapons. The Greatlance is good for getting into the monster's face instead of dodging like a scrub. Greatlance also includes a shield, which can block attacks. The lance is on the slower side. Gunlance, the only lance weapon I'm interested in because of its built-in gun. Like the Greatlance, but you need some more inputs. Still has access to the shield for blocking. Charge Blade is one of my favorites. You build up files by attacking in sword mode, and then you use the heat in the shield by doing R2 plus A to get the files charged. Then R2 plus X to switch to the Charge Blade mode, and start using the files with A once in the Charge Blade mode. And the shield that also charges the blade can also be used to block. I love this weapon since it makes the player learn tougher combos. Now onto non-shield weapons. The longsword is a weapon where you build up a red bar. Use R2 to a combo finish to build up different rage levels. It also goes from white to yellow to red. At red level you do higher damage and it makes your finisher moves do more damage. The hunting horn. I find this weapon pretty easy to use in Rise. Each weapon tree has different buffs, and by playing the needed notes, you can buff yourself and your team. By doing a combo finisher, you get a unique buff. Dual blades. Dual blades are a really fast weapon that can deal fast damage, excellent for fast movement and fast dodging. Demon mode uses stamina over time. This makes your dodges longer and attacks faster. During demon mode, you also build up a red bar. So when demon mode is exited, your basic attacks perform better. I also noticed you still get some of the fast dodging after building up the red bar outside of demon mode. The insect glaive is one of the weird weapons that is mainly good for its air moves, but it still is a solid ground weapon. R2 plus X is a way for the player to direct the Kinsect to attack the monster. R2 and A allows you to bring the Kinsect back to yourself and get the buff. There are different Kinsects that you can select. Your main objective is to get all 3 Kinsect buffs, or get the buffs that are the most strongest on your specific Kinsect. Now going on to the Switch Axe. Switch Axe is a weird weapon. By hitting the monster in Axe mode, the bar is filled. But when that bar hits a certain threshold, you can switch into Blade mode. Blade mode is much faster. When the blade bar outside the blade is full, use X and A to grab onto the monster, stab it holding the buttons until an explosion happens. Moving on to the hammer. The hammer is the fun slow weapon where it has a charge where you have to let go at the brightest charge. The hammer excels at breaking harder shelled monsters and stunning them. That requires a ton of knowledge of monsters to use well. The Greatsword. The Greatsword excels on slow swings that hit like a truck. True Charge does the most damage, but is hard to pull off. Shoulder Bashing has a small iframe window that can negate most damage, plus allowing the player to continue their charge attack after. Most of the time, True Charge is hard to pull off, so wait for a good moment to do. And of course, I'm going to cover all the range weapons in the same sort of category, but the bow is actually the hardest one to use out of all of these. Keep that in mind. Light Bowgun. A fast bowgun that can be customized at a smithy to your personal use. And you can switch your ammo types, but the ammo needs to be formed and crafted. Same rules for heavy bowgun, just it's slower and it's harder, with a smaller clip. It's more of a shotgun weapon as well. Now bows need ointment for the arrows, which is the difference from ammo on the bowgun. Bows, like the other ranged options, need to be used in a close distance in order to do the best damage. Now since I'm done with the weapons, I'm going to mention switch attacks. Switch attacks are different changes to your weapon's kits, like the GS Bash or GS True Charge. Have changes that can be made. Every weapon has them, and you can get more switch weapons the further you get. Now the topic I want to focus on is how multiplayer is. Monster Hunter Rise's multiplayer is more like Ultimates, have separate progress, unlike World's scuffed combined solution of needing to flare in friends for multiplayer, completely making multiplayer a chore for those who only wanted to play with friends. And now with progression in HR being separated again, it will allow players to relax with their single player experience and hunt with the boys. Now for the subject of today. And that topic of the subject is actually working in a team. And gladly, Monster Hunter Rise is a perfect game about teamwork to kill monsters. It's a game where weapon choice, positioning, and team composition matters. If players never learn these challenges of multiplayer, they would only trip over each other. And that means if you're gonna use that weeb sword, use it right and position yourself away from the head in a team fight. And that is pretty much everything, except this one last thing. Teamwork is a great example of real-life skills. A good team can communicate and work well together. And that's why Monster Hunter Rise is a 10 out of 10. For its inclusion of all the new mobility options, it's not better than Ultimate, but it's a step in the right direction. Good luck hunting out there, guys.